He opened the door at 2 a.m. and she was standing there barefoot, bleeding, soaking wet, and the first thing he noticed wasn't the wound on her arm or the storm howling behind her. It was her eyes. Dark 1 second, gold the next, shifting like something alive beneath the surface, something she couldn't quite keep still. He knew what she was. He stepped aside and let her in anyway. That was the beginning of the most dangerous thing Elias Voss had ever done. And this man had survived 32 years in Ashveil, a town where the monsters don't hide. They just learned that people will look away if you give them a reason to. He had bruises on his jaw from men who answered to something that lived beneath the cannery. He had a father 3 years dead who never once said I love you but taught him exactly how to recognize a threat. He recognized her. Every single thing she was. And he made her coffee. He gave her his shirt. He sat in the kitchen all night listening to her breathe. Some hungers are stronger than fear. That's the story we're telling tonight. If this already has your heart beating a little faster, like, subscribe, and don't go anywhere. It only gets harder to breathe from here. Ashveil sits on the northern coast like a bad secret that nobody has the courage to tell. Fog rolls in most mornings and never quite leaves. Everything rusts here. The harbor barely functions. The diner on Mill Street closes at 4 in the afternoon, not because business is slow, but because nobody wants to be out after dark without a reason. The church at the end of Prospect Road has a pastor with eyes that are just slightly too pale, and if you sit in his pew long enough, you start to feel like something is sitting behind your eyes right back. Nobody chooses Ashveil. You are born here or you wash up here. The people who leave don't come back. The people who stay learn to manage. They learn to look at certain things sideways. They learn to explain away the sounds from the cannery after midnight. It's the pipes, they say. It's always the pipes. The thing that moves along Carver Street after 2 in the morning isn't anything. It's the Wilson boy, strange kid, always was. The shapes in the water near the North Dock are just seals. They've always been seals. Ashveil runs on collective denial. It is the town's only real economy. And Elias Voss is its most devoted citizen. He is 32 years old. He works at Garrity's Hardware on the main street, 6 days a week, 8 to 5. He fixes things. He is extraordinarily good at it, good with his hands in a way that goes slightly beyond skill, beyond practice, into something he has never examined too closely. A cut that should take a week to close is gone in 2 days. A bruise fades faster than bruises should. He has noticed this his entire life. He has chosen, deliberately and with great discipline, not to think about it. He has no close friends. He has his truck, which runs. He has his house, his father's house, his grandfather's house before that, a 2-story salt box at the edge of the residential quarter with iron nails above every door frame and a Bible on the kitchen shelf that neither Elias nor his father ever read, but that neither of them ever moved. He is old Mrs. Callahan next door, who is 74 and pretends not to notice the state of him, and who leaves soup on his porch on the days he forgets to eat. He has never once seriously considered leaving Ashveil. Not because he loves it here. He doesn't. Not because he has built something here worth protecting. He hasn't. It's simpler than that and sadder than that. Leaving is something other people do. People with somewhere better to go. People who believe, somewhere in the soft animal part of themselves, that things can be different. Elias stopped believing that a long time ago. He can't point to the exact moment it went. He just knows that one morning he woke up and the feeling wasn't there anymore, and he has been living in the space it left ever since. His father has been dead for 3 years. Heart attack, the death certificate says. Elias has never been entirely sure about that. He thinks about Thomas Voss more than he would like. Not with grief, exactly, or not only with grief. Mostly with the particular bone-deep exhaustion of a man who is owed an apology he will never receive. Thomas was cold. Thomas was watchful. He taught Elias exactly 2 things, how to fix a leaking pipe and how to recognize a threat. Trust no one who moves too smoothly. He said it the way other fathers said I love you, without warmth, without ceremony, reflexively, as if that phrase were the whole of fatherhood and he had fulfilled it. Elias grew up understanding that love looked like surveillance. That care expressed itself as suspicion. That the safest thing a person could be was useful and invisible and never, under any circumstances, in need of saving. He learned well. The bruise on his jaw is 3 days old. It has faded to yellow at the edges, but the center is still the deep, unhappy purple of something that was meant to leave a mark. He got it from Cade Harrow, the older of the 2 Harrow brothers, men built like industrial machinery, who run the south end of Ashveil and answer to something that lives beneath the cannery floor. They had come to the hardware store on a Tuesday. Polite enough at first. They wanted Elias to sign a property transfer. His land, the Voss land, the strip of clifftop property that runs from the north end of town down to the old lighthouse road, border something. Something the thing beneath the cannery needs access to. Something it has apparently decided it can no longer do without. Elias said no. Cade Harrow had looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "You'll reconsider." Elias has not reconsidered. He will not. The land is the only thing his father ever gave him that did not come wrapped in silence or fear. The house he could lose. The job he could lose. The cold inheritance of a life lived small and careful and alone that he could walk away from. But not this. Not the one thing Thomas Voss left behind without explanation, without instruction, only a single line in the will: keep the land. Don't let them have it. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you why. Elias is a good man living a cornered life. He was born into this. He never chose any of it. And every person in this town who watched the Harrow brothers walk into that hardware store knew what was happening and looked the other way, because that is what Ashveil does. That is the only thing Ashveil has ever done. If something in you wants to put this on in the background and stay, if this town already feels real to you, hit that like button. It tells me you're here, and it means more than you know. Now stay, because it's about to get worse before it gets anything close to better. Elias is at his kitchen table when the storm starts. It is a Tuesday night in late October, and the storm comes in off the ocean like something with a grudge. The lights flicker twice. He doesn't move. Every light in the house is already on. He sleeps with them on, has since he was a child, one of the small private shames he carries without examining, and the coffee in his hands has gone cold. The bruise on his jaw throbs faintly. He has eaten nothing since noon. Outside, something moves across the wet street. Too fast. Too smooth. The way water moves when something large displaces it beneath the surface. He watches it through the kitchen window. He doesn't flinch. That is not bravery. That is a man who ran out of fear at around age 14 and has been running on empty ever since. The knock comes at 2:17 in the morning. It is soft. That is the first thing. He has been knocked on before at strange hours. The Harrow brothers have their own way of announcing themselves, heavy and deliberate, the knock of something that knows it will be answered. This is not that. This is tentative. Almost apologetic. The knock of something that isn't sure it has the right to ask. He goes to the door. He opens it. She is standing on his porch in the rain. Barefoot. Soaking wet, the kind of wet that means she has been out in this for a long time, her clothes plastered to her skin, her dark hair streaming down her shoulders. One hand is braced against the doorframe like her legs have had a conversation with each other and reached a disagreement. There is a cut along her left forearm, deep, the kind that needs attention, blood already diluted pink by the rain running over it. And her eyes. Her eyes are dark. Or light. He cannot quite determine which, because they keep shifting at the edges, cycling through colors he doesn't have names for, amber into gray into something so pale it is almost silver, and then cycling back. He knows what she is. He has known since the second he saw her. Every instinct his father ever drilled into him is firing at once. Every iron nail above every doorframe suddenly means something. He steps back. He opens the door wider. She comes in. She says her name is Mara. She says her car went off Route 9 in the rain, hit the guardrail, slid into the ditch. She says she's been walking for 40 minutes. She says she just needs to use his phone. He doesn't hand her the phone first. He hands her a towel. She takes it. Their fingers don't touch. The almost of it is loud in the small hallway. She moves through the house the way water finds its own level, quietly, efficiently, taking everything in. He watches her read the room. The locks on the windows, double-bolted, iron. The nails above the door frames. The Bible on the shelf, open to Psalms, spine cracked from 30 years of the same page. She knows what those things are for. He can see her knowing it in the careful neutrality of her face. She looks up. She finds him watching. Neither of them says anything about any of it. The phone has no signal. The road is washed out. He checks the County Alert app, the kind of habit that becomes reflex when you live in a town that doesn't like to be reached. The nearest town is 40 minutes in good weather. In this, it might as well be the moon. He makes up the couch. He gives her a blanket, dry socks, and a flannel shirt from his closet, his, oversized, and he is very deliberate about not thinking about how it will look on her. He goes to the kitchen and sits with the lights on and the rain hammering the windows, and he does not sleep. At some point before dawn, 4, maybe 4:30, he hears the floorboards. He looks up. She is in the kitchen doorway. She has the flannel shirt on, her wet hair beginning to dry into waves, the blanket around her shoulders. She is looking at him with an expression he can't entirely read. Not suspicion, exactly. Not curiosity. Something more careful than either of those things. She doesn't speak. She just stands there. He looks at her. She looks at him. You should sleep, she says finally. So should you, he says. She almost smiles. It moves across her face like light through cloudy water, brief, and gone before he can be sure it was there. He looks away first. He is not sure why. He only knows that meeting her eyes for too long feels like standing too close to something that could burn him, and that he is not entirely opposed to burning. She goes back to the couch. He stays in the kitchen until the sky begins to gray. She shouldn't still be there on day 2. She stays. He doesn't ask her to. He doesn't ask her to go either. He makes coffee in the morning. She takes hers black, no sugar, and she wraps her hands around the mug the way he wraps his around his own, like warmth is something to be held rather than consumed, and he notices this the way you notice things you're not supposed to, quietly, sideways, and then not at all. Day 3. She sits across from him at the kitchen table with a book she found on his shelf, one of his grandfather's, a dense, practical thing about ocean navigation. Dead reckoning and star charts and the mathematics of finding yourself in open water without instruments. She reads it like it is the most natural thing in the world. He doesn't ask why. He doesn't ask anything. Day 5. The porch railing has been loose since August. He doesn't know when he decided to fix it, only that he's outside with a drill and she's suddenly beside him, crouching, handing up the screws he needs before he reaches for them. The 3rd time it happens, he stops working and just looks at her. She looks back, calm as a held breath. You were about to reach for it, she says. I know, he says. He goes back to drilling. She keeps handing him things. Their hands don't touch. The almost of it is constant now. It is living in his chest. He has stopped trying to convince himself it isn't. Day 7. He comes home from the hardware store at 5:15. The house smells like something cooking, garlic and something roasting, warmth from the kitchen, a smell so ordinary and so foreign that he stands in the hallway with one hand on the wall and just breathes for a moment. He breathes like a man who has just surfaced from very deep water. He stands there for a long time. Every day he tells himself it will be the last one. Every day some mechanism in him that he cannot name refuses to say the words. He wants her to stay. He is afraid she will stay. He is more afraid she won't. He doesn't examine any of this too closely. He has a long history of not examining things too closely. It is, he has to admit, beginning to fail him. The physical awareness of her is constant and quiet and relentless. The accidental geometry of a small house, 2 people in a kitchen, The narrow space between the counter and the table, the moment she leans past him to reach the top shelf, and he does not move because moving would require acknowledging why he should. Her hair still damp at the ends in the evenings, from a shower she takes at exactly 7, and the way she comes out in his borrowed clothes, always his clothes, because she packed nothing and he has not thought to offer to replace them, and sits across from him in the lamplight and reads. Her eyes drift to his hands sometimes. When he's working, fixing something at the table or holding a book. They drift and then go deliberately away, and he watches her not look at him with the focused attention of a man who has run out of other things to think about. He has not touched her. He has thought about it more than he will ever admit, lying awake in the room above her, listening to the house settle around two people who are managing to say nothing while communicating something enormous. He thinks, this is a terrible idea. He thinks, I have had terrible ideas before and survived them. He has not survived them. Not really. But he is still here. Night 12. He can't sleep. The house is quiet, the way it gets after midnight, all the small mechanical sounds dropping away until there's nothing but the ocean in the distance and the odd tick of old wood cooling. He comes downstairs in socks and a t-shirt, not thinking, just thirsty, just awake. She's in the kitchen. She's standing at the window with her back to him, looking out at the dark harbor, and she doesn't hear him come in, or she's too deep in whatever she's in to surface at the sound of him. And for 3 seconds, just 3, her silhouette is wrong. The edges of her are too soft and too multiple, like a long exposure photograph of something moving fast. Like the outline of her is having a debate with itself. Then she feels him. She turns. She's herself again, just herself, just Mara, just the woman standing in his kitchen in the dark. But the recovery is a half-beat slow and they both know it. He fills his glass at the tap. The water is cold. Neither of them speaks. He goes back upstairs. He lies flat on his back in the dark with his eyes open and his hands flat on his chest, and he thinks, I already knew. He thinks, I have known since the first night. He thinks, I don't care. And that last one, that is the thought that keeps him awake until 4 in the morning. Because he has spent 32 years in a town that runs on knowing what something is and keeping your distance from it. His father built that instinct into him like load-bearing architecture. And somewhere in 12 days of coffee and flannel shirts and her handing him tools he hadn't reached for yet, that architecture has quietly, without drama, without announcement, begun to come apart at the joints. He doesn't care what she is. He cares, with a ferocity that frightens him, that she stays. That's the most dangerous thing Elias Voss has ever thought. And somewhere in Ashveil, something is already moving in response to it. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments. Elias has spent his whole life paying for choices he never made. Would you have stayed in Ashveil? Or would you have run the first chance you got? And if you're watching this on someone else's recommendation, subscribe. This story is just getting started, and you don't want to come back and find yourself 3 videos behind. Day 13. The storm has been gone for over a week. The roads are clear. There is no logical reason for her to still be here. There is no logical reason he is still pretending there is one. They are on the porch at dusk, him with a beer and her with her knees drawn up to her chest in the old wooden chair that has sat in that spot for 20 years. The harbor is purple in the light. Somewhere down the hill, something moves along the waterfront that is not a person, but they don't talk about that. Nobody in Ashveil talks about that. She asks him about his father. He doesn't answer right away. He watches the harbor. He turns the beer bottle in his hands. He kept me safe, he says finally. I think that was the only thing he knew how to do. And I think he hated me a little for needing it. She is quiet. Not the quiet of someone waiting to speak. The quiet of someone actually absorbing what they've been told. My whole life, she says slowly, I've been given shapes to wear. Things to become. I have worn so many faces. She stops. Starts again. I can't remember, I genuinely cannot remember, what my face looked like before the first time I changed it. She says it like a fact. Like she is reading from a document about someone else. Her voice doesn't waver, but her hands tighten on the arms of the chair, slow, controlled, the grip of someone holding something in. He turns and looks at her. Really looks at her. Not the careful sideways looking he's been doing for 12 days, the measured glances that preserve plausible deniability. He looks at her directly, without apology or management. "That is the saddest thing I have ever heard," he says. "I know," she says. She doesn't look away. For the first time since she arrived on his porch in the rain, she doesn't perform looking away, doesn't organize her expression into something safer. She just looks back at him, in the purple light of a harbor evening, and lets him see her. It costs her something. He can tell. He doesn't know exactly what. He knows it costs her. He looks back at the harbor. Neither of them speaks for a long time. But the silence has changed. It is no longer the silence of two people managing a situation. It is the silence of two people who have just told each other the truth and are sitting in the aftermath of it, slightly astonished to still be upright. He finds the journals the next morning. He has known about the false panel in the basement wall his entire life. He has walked past it 10,000 times. He has been not opening it for 3 years, since the day after the funeral, when he came down here and stood in front of it in the gray light and thought, not yet. He has been not yet for 36 months. Mara is asleep. The house is quiet. He opens it. 3 notebooks. His father's handwriting, careful, cramped, the penmanship of a man who wrote slowly and meant every word. Water damaged at the edges, the ink bloomed in places, but legible. All of it legible. He sits on the basement floor and reads for 2 hours. He does not move. The deal is laid out in meticulous, agonized detail. Thomas Voss, 33 years ago, went to the thing beneath the cannery. He went alone at night, with nothing to offer except information and silence. The arrangement was simple in the way that terrible things are simple. The town's collective quiet would continue. The monsters of Ashveil would be left unmolested by any human attempt at exposure or resistance. In exchange, the Voss family would be protected. No one would touch the boy. The price was Elena Voss. His mother did not leave. She was not unhappy and overwhelmed and gone in the night. She was delivered. Thomas Voss drove his wife to the end of the harbor road on a January night when Elias was not yet 2 years old, and he left her there, and he drove home, and he lived the next 30 years inside that act. "I told myself I was protecting the boy," his father wrote. The handwriting was unsteady on that line. I still believe that. I don't think I'll ever stop believing that. I don't think that makes it true. Elias closes the last notebook. He sits in the dark. He does not cry. He doesn't have anything left that functions like that. He just sits there with the notebooks in his lap and lets the understanding move through him slowly, like cold water filling a room, his father's coldness, his father's watchfulness, the rule about trust, the years of silence, the apology that never came. Not cruelty. Guilt. 30 years of guilt wearing the face of protection. He sits in that basement until his back aches and the light through the small window has shifted to afternoon. When he comes upstairs, she is at the kitchen table. She takes one look at his face and goes very still. "Tell me," she says. Quietly. Not a demand. An offering. He sits down across from her. He tells her everything. She listens without flinching. She doesn't move toward him. She seems to understand, with some instinct older than language, that what he needs right now is not comfort. What he needs is a witness. Someone to sit across from the truth with him and not look away. She does not look away. He is closer to her in that moment than he has been to another human being in his entire life. He does not know what to do with that. He files it somewhere behind his sternum and breathes around it. That night, she falls asleep on the couch before 10. He sits in the armchair across the room, telling himself he'll go up in a minute. He doesn't go up. He sits there in the lamp glow and watches her sleep. Asleep, her face is completely still. Whatever she is when she's awake, performing, managing, wearing the shape she's chosen, asleep she is just this, A woman who has been running for a very long time. Her breathing is slow and even. Her hands are loose at her sides. He reaches out. His hand crosses the space between the armchair and the couch until his palm is 3 inches from her shoulder. He can feel the warmth of her from there. He stays like that for a long moment, suspended, hand in the air, 3 inches from contact. He pulls it back. He goes upstairs. He stands at the window in his room with his forehead pressed to the cold glass, and he breathes, and he thinks about the harbor road and a January night and a choice made by a man who believed he was out of options. He thinks about what it costs to leave someone. He thinks about what it costs to stay. Day 14. Morning. She's at the table with coffee. He's at the stove with eggs. The door opens without a knock. Not a man. It wears the shape of one tall, gray-suited, hair neatly parted, face arranged in an expression of mild professionalism that doesn't reach its eyes, because its eyes are doing something eyes don't do. It moves wrong. Not visibly, nothing you could point to, but every animal thing inside Elias goes rigid the moment it crosses the threshold. This is one of them. A real one. Not the Harrow brothers, who are men in service to something. This is something. It looks at Mara. Your report is overdue, it says. The assessment is required. Elias turns slowly from the stove. Mara doesn't look at him. That is how he knows. The thing in the gray suit explains it with the patience of something that has had this conversation before. Mara was dispatched 14 days ago. She was to evaluate the situation, evaluate him, and report back within 72 hours. The question was simple: was Elias Voss going to be a problem, or was he going to be manageable? Would he sign the property transfer and continue the Voss family tradition of quiet compliance, or would he need to be resolved? She was supposed to tell them. She stopped reporting on day 3. The gray-suited thing says this without accusation. It is simply a fact in need of correction. Elias puts the spatula down. He puts it down carefully, with great precision, the way you handle a thing when your hands are about to stop cooperating. He looks at her. She finally looks at him. Her eyes are cycling, the amber-gray-silver, unstable, the control she keeps over it in freefall. Elias. He picks up his coffee cup. He sets it in the sink. He walks to the back door and opens it and steps out into the cold morning air, and he keeps walking. He doesn't look back. Stay with me. I need you to stay with me right now, because I know what you're feeling, that lurch in your stomach, that no, not them, not now. Drop it in the comments. Did Mara stop reporting because she started to feel something for him? Or did she discover something in Elias that she wasn't supposed to find, something that changed the math entirely? Tell me what you think. Because the answer matters more than you know. He walks to the lighthouse. It stands at the edge of the northern cliff, decommissioned for 20 years, its light long dark, its white paint gone gray and salt-stripped. He used to come here as a boy. When his father's silence became too heavy to breathe inside, when the house felt less like shelter and more like a sentence, he would walk up here and sit on the stone floor and look at the sea and let the noise in his head go somewhere it could be lost. He sits on the stone floor now. He thinks. He thinks about his mother, Elena Voss, a name on a grave that may be empty, a face in exactly 3 photographs that his father kept in a shoebox under the bed and never displayed. He thinks about what was taken from her, and by whom, and in whose arms she was last. He thinks about a man who loved his son in the only way he knew how, which was to pay every price he was asked and never explain why, and hope the silence held. He thinks about Mara. 12 days of mornings. Coffee black, no sugar. The way she sat in his grandfather's chair and read about ocean navigation as if she were planning to go somewhere. The way she handed him tools before he reached for them. 12 nights of lying upstairs listening to his house breathe around the both of them. He thinks about her face when the gray-suited thing walked in. She was terrified. Not of it. Of him seeing. She had stopped reporting. She stopped on day 3, the same day she told him how she takes her coffee, the same day she picked up the navigation book, the same day something shifted. Some silent negotiation inside her that had nothing to do with assignment or contract or the thing beneath the cannery. She stopped because she had started choosing. And she had protected that choice for 11 days without telling him. He knows the difference between a lie of convenience and a lie of necessity. His father's journals are full of both. He grew up fluent in each. His father lied because he was ashamed. Because the truth was too large and too ugly, and he couldn't figure out how to carry it toward another person without dropping it on them. Mara stopped lying the moment it was safe to. Which means she has been waiting for 11 days to be safe enough to tell him the truth, and the only reason it came out the way it did was because the gray-suited thing took the choice out of her hands. He is sitting with this, turning it over, feeling its weight, when he hears footsteps on the lighthouse stairs. She is breathing hard. She had to have run. She appears in the lighthouse doorway with her hair loose and her feet bare, because she is always barefoot when she forgets to perform being human on the cold stone, her hands at her sides, her chest heaving. She stands in the same posture she stood in on his porch 2 weeks ago. Braced. Waiting. Prepared for whatever comes. She doesn't come in. How much of it was real, he asks. She doesn't hesitate. Day 3, she says. Everything before that was assignment. Everything after, she stops. Something moves through her expression that she doesn't manage quickly enough. Everything after was mine. He is quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to prove that to you, she says. I know, he says. He looks at the floor. He looks at her. Sit down anyway. She crosses the threshold. She sits on the stone floor across from him. They are 6 feet apart in an empty lighthouse in the cold, with the sea crashing somewhere below them, and neither of them speaks for a while. But she is here. She followed him here, barefoot in October, and that is a language he is beginning to know how to read. The gray-suited thing comes before midnight. They have not moved. They have talked slowly, carefully, the way you talk when you've agreed to be honest and you're discovering exactly how unnatural that is. She has told him things. Not everything, but real things. The kind you can't take back. He has told her things. The same kind. The lighthouse door fills. The thing in the gray suit is no longer performing pleasantness. Something underneath its borrowed shape is pressing against the surface of it, distorting it, the way a body distorts the bag it's carried in. The Voss line ends tonight, it says. Its voice has changed register lower, flatter, the voice of something that has stopped pretending to have a larynx. The original arrangement is dissolved. He is a liability. Mara stands up. She is between it and Elias before he has fully processed what is happening. She is not reaching for anything. She is not threatening it. She is simply there, and then she is not simply anything, because the air in the lighthouse changes, pressure dropping, temperature dropping, something pulling at the edges of reality the way a current pulls at fabric, and she shifts. Not the 3-second slip at the kitchen window. Not the careful, controlled shimmer she's been maintaining for 2 weeks. She shifts fully, completely, the way you remove a mask you've been wearing so long it's left marks on your face. Something moves through her shape that is vast and luminous and very, very old. The kind of thing that was old when the cannery creature was learning to wear a face. Something that has no adequate word in any language Elias knows, and that he understands immediately and completely anyway, the way you understand fire. She is terrifying. She is the most honest thing he has ever seen in his life. The gray-suited thing stops moving. He can see it recalibrate. He can see it understand something it did not know an hour ago, something about Mara, something about what she is in her full expression, something about the rules that govern what she is doing right now. A shapeshifter who chooses a side cannot be moved. Not by contract. Not by hierarchy. Not by whatever the thing beneath the cannery has spent 30 years accumulating. Choice, among their kind, is the one currency that cannot be seized. Only freely given. She gave it freely. And it is absolute. The gray-suited thing steps back. Then again. Then it turns, and the lighthouse doorway is empty, and the sound of the sea fills the space where it was. Silence. Mara pulls herself back into the shape Elias knows. It takes time. It costs her. He can see it costing her, the way you can see exhaustion move through a body even when the body is trying not to show it. She is shaking. Her hands are shaking. She turns to face him, and she arranges her expression the way she has always arranged it, neutral, prepared, ready for the thing that comes after being truly seen. She has been flinched away from before. He can see that in her too. She is braced for it, standing in a lighthouse in October with her hands shaking and her eyes still cycling through every color she contains, bracing for the moment he takes a step back and his face does the thing faces do. He crosses the room. He puts his hands on her face. Both of them, palms to her jaw, her still shifting face held steady between his hands, and he feels the movement of it, the subtle, constant flux of her, the realness of her in a way that is nothing like what he was taught to fear. "I know what you are," he says. She goes very still. She waits. "I'm starting to think," he says, "that I know what I am too." She understands immediately. He watches it move through her, the understanding of every small thing that has not made sense about him. Eyes that read a room like a threat assessment map. Wounds that close faster than they should. Animals going still when he passes. And a shapeshifter who came to evaluate him as a liability and instead found someone she recognized. Someone she had not expected. Someone she had stopped reporting about on day 3 because reporting him felt like reporting herself. She was always going to find him. She just didn't know that was what she was doing. She breaks quietly. Not the dramatic breaking of someone performed at the sharp inhalation, the eyes full and spilling, hands finding the front of his shirt and curling into the fabric. Just that. Just the small, private collapse of someone who has been carrying something enormous for a very long time and has, for the first time, been handed somewhere to put it down. He pulls her in. She lets him. They stand like that in the lighthouse, in the dark, with the sea below them and Ashveil silent at their backs. Two people who have spent their whole lives in the wrong shape. Two people discovering, slowly and with great care, that being seen by the right person doesn't end you. It might be the only thing that doesn't. He doesn't know what morning will ask of them. He doesn't know what his mother became, or where she is, or if the thing beneath the cannery will honor the silence of a shapeshifter's choice, or spend its time rebuilding around it. He doesn't know what he is, exactly, or what she is, or what they are together, only that together is the word, and it is the first word that has ever felt accurately sized to his life. He holds her. She lets him hold her. Outside, the sea keeps moving. It has been moving for longer than Ashveil has existed. It will keep moving long after the gray-suited things have rearranged themselves, and the cannery has found new arrangements, and the Harrow brothers have knocked on some other door. Some things are older than the dark. They watch the sun come up from the lighthouse doorway. His first night in his entire memory of staying awake without being afraid. She is beside him, not touching, shoulder distance, but close enough that the warmth is real and he knows it, and she knows he knows it, and neither of them needs to say so. "I have to find out what happened to my mother," he says. "I know," she says. "Will you help me?" She looks at him. There is something in her expression that he is only now learning the name for the look of someone who has spent so long performing lives for other people that being asked what they want has become briefly stunning. "I don't have an assignment anymore," she says. "I have time." He almost smiles. It is the closest thing to one she has seen from him in 14 days, and it does something to the early morning light. Down the hill, the cannery is quiet. Too quiet. The Harrow brothers are not visible. The gray suit is gone. Ashveil sits in the pale autumn morning looking exactly as it always has, rusted and patient, and full of things that wear other faces. Elias knows this town. He has spent 32 years understanding its particular grammar of silence and looking away. He knows that the monsters don't leave just because an arrangement collapsed. They rearrange. They wait. They find new leverage, new angles, new faces to wear. He knows that this morning, this pale, specific, irreplaceable morning, only means he survived the night. It does not mean the night is over. Elias finally knows who he is. Mara finally chose her own shape. But Ashveil is still Ashveil, and something in that town is already rearranging itself in the space where a deal used to be. Tell me in the comments, do you think they can survive what comes next? Or did they just win one battle in a war that has no end? Because here is the thing that will stay with you. Mara said she stopped reporting on day 3. The creature showed up on day 14. Someone told it where they were. Mara was the only one who knew. But here is the thing about shapeshifters. They don't just wear faces. Sometimes, just sometimes, they wear each other. If this story found something in you that it wasn't expecting, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't. And tell me in the comments the one thing you cannot stop thinking about right now. I'll see you in the next arc.